Angela Moscaritolo from SC Magazine, and we're here with Ed Goodman, Chief Privacy Officer at Identity Theft 911, and they do data breach response and identity theft restoration. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And today we're going to be talking about mobile security. So tell us a little bit about the state of mobile security at small businesses and enterprises today.
Well, it's definitely in a state of flux right now. I think that most institutions have really done a good job of thinking through security on an enterprise level when it comes to their networks and their systems. I think that the smartphone market, especially over the last few years, has sort of exploded so much that a lot of these written information security protocols and a lot of the practices in place have not really been adjusted to sort of account for this new growth and the use of smartphones on an enterprise level. So I think that it's definitely in flux and definitely an area that I think really deserves attention from IT security staff, privacy staff, and even internal compliance folks.
So it seems like the policies haven't really kept up with the technology.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And because the technology is even now still in a lot of flux, and you're starting to see a lot of applications that weren't traditionally carried out on a smartphone or a phone device, a lot of the policies really have not caught up to addressing a lot of the security issues that are now being raised from those devices.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the security issues. What are the main ones, the main threats?
Well, they really come down to starting with the basics, and that's number one issue is lack of access controls. Sort of info security 101. One of the first steps. And that's basic things like having to log in on powering up or accessing the device, for instance, or being auto logged off after certain periods of inactivity, or even features like wiping the device after a certain number of failed attempts to log on. Some of those are probably the easiest quick step, because the real loss or issues are loss of the device. It's less likely, though possible, that a device could be hacked or hacked, so to speak, but lost cell phones and smartphones, it happens every day, way more common than lost laptops. And these smartphone devices now can really have almost as much information, or at least access to it, as a laptop did 5 years ago. So I think that's probably one of the biggest threats is the fact that these devices aren't properly locked down on an enterprise level, from an approach, general approach, and the fact that they are very commonly lost. They're very easily to be forgotten, and if they're not properly secured, obviously anything that's on the device is readily accessible, and applications that reach further into the cloud or into a network might also be accessible.
Right, and so you mentioned applications, and we hear so much about the mobile app stores. What are some of the applications that could potentially pose a problem?
Well, obviously, with a lot of these devices, their strengths aren't necessarily in their storage capacity. It's really in their access, to the web. So a lot of these apps that are really cloud type of apps, like Salesforce, for instance,
Right.
for customer relations management. They're very handy, great apps for salespeople on the go to stay connected, update their sales leads, things like that. Unfortunately, if their device isn't properly locked down, they've enabled an auto login to just log on to that app automatically and get into the cloud, so to speak, where it's remotely hosted. Anyone who gets that device also has that same access. So, an easy example is a sales rep for your company walking around a trade show, drops their phone, it's not properly locked down, any competitor could pick it up and within a few minutes be looking at their customer list, client list, things like that, and have that access.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's cloud apps like that are a little bit better, because even if you're not haven't properly secured your phone, you can't cancel your subscription, you can change your login credentials through another computer or terminal, but it's still a huge risk. The other side that we're starting to see a lot of risk, though, is in medical apps. The iPhone in particular, and increasingly BlackBerry and even Google Android enabled phones they're starting to come out with a lot of medical management apps. So typically, and some of the first apps were monitoring software, primarily in fields like cardiology or obstetrics, where there might be the need to constantly monitor a patient through essentially real time through a remote app on a cell phone device. The problem is, again, a lot of the physicians using these apps and using these devices haven't taken the proper steps to lock these devices down. So again, common threat, leaving your phone, at a coffee shop or something like that, or dropping it. Anyone that has access to that same, monitoring software, things like that. So the potential for people accessing sensitive health information, things of that nature, they're starting to grow as a lot more of these records become digitized. Obviously, healthcare is moving towards digital health records, and it's only natural to sort of expect that once we've moved to digital health records being sort of a more common and pervasive technology, that they're going to be naturally accessed on smartphones through smartphone apps. And again, we're already seeing those monitoring apps. So a lot of times, again, it comes down to just basic security steps, password protection, things like that. But there are other, available technologies, encryption technologies, things of that nature, that can also be employed just depending on the sensitivity of the information that you're accessing.
Right. So, what are organizations to do now? Is your recommendation that they should get their policies in line with this smartphone usage?
Absolutely, and it's not a drastic change. A lot of the basics, from a security protocol perspective that are employed, in a company for desktop machines and servers and all of that can very easily be sort of transposed onto smartphones.
And
again,
need to be,
and
right?
need to be, absolutely. They need to be thought of the same way as Wi-Fi enabled laptops were thought of 5, 6, 7 years ago, as they were not quite a new technology, but increasingly being used by every member of staff. Same thing with smartphones and things like that. It's not just the executives using it now, it's middle management all the way down to almost everybody in the institution. And so written information security protocols that deal with how you address security on these smartphones, those types of things, as well as educating employees on proper use, proper access, and then obviously putting access controls, the real basic stuff that has been basic security practice, for decades, frankly.
Right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to you for watching. Have a great day.